David Brister here with another episode of Three for All, and this is three Vinnie Moore licks from 1991. And Vinnie Moore is definitely a legendary, monstrous guitarist, and one of the well-respected players from that initial, Shrapnel Records boom, back in the 80s. And I know when I first heard the song Daydream, which I think most people, kind of heard Vinnie from the album Mind's Eye. And when I heard Daydream, those fast kind of sequenced, scale runs and arpeggios and the real melodic phrasing, it caught my attention, right off the bat. And I thought, who is Vinnie Moore? And I became a fan. And then eventually, Mind's Eye was great, Time Odyssey, and, this album Meltdown, in 91, when I bought that album, it just blew me away. It had this kind of heavy rock, blues influenced, instrumental style, and definitely a killer album. For those of you watching this that are not really sure if you know Vinnie Moore, he did appear in a very famous Pepsi commercial, like back in the 80s. And his face didn't appear in the commercial, but his hands and his music did. And that was kind of a popular, Pepsi commercial at that time. Of course, it was the 80s. So, I mean, if you had guitar or keyboards in a commercial, it was probably a well-received, TV commercial. But he's put out like 8 solo albums. He appears on Vicious Rumors' debut album, the album Hey Stupid with Alice Cooper. He appeared on that. And then he's been a member of UFO and appeared on like a half dozen albums since like 2003 or something like that. So he's definitely been around. And he also appears on an old Sega Saturn video game, Burning Rangers, which most people don't remember that video game. I do, mainly because I played it and I had a Sega Saturn for a while. The licks in this lesson came from a bootleg that I found on YouTube, and these were recently posted to YouTube. I found one from 2018. I found one that was posted in October of 2019. And then there was another like clip from around the same time. I believe one show was in New York, which is where these licks came from. Another show was from New Jersey. And then I'm not sure where the other footage came from. It was just a short clip of him playing a solo. But I'd never seen any of this footage, and I've never seen Vinnie in concert before. But when I stumbled upon that footage, I thought, oh, cool, here's some Vinnie Moore, and I started clicking and I was watching it. And it's killer. I mean, he comes out playing with the band. You can tell he's pumped up because he's in an arena. He announces that they were going to be opening for Rush on an upcoming tour, and you can tell he is stoked about that, which that's amazing, Vinnie opening for Rush. But you can tell, the energy and, it's very inspired, and Vinnie is just like a flamethrower. I mean, he is just throwing out all these cool licks. They're performing really well. And then he plays a solo, and he just starts shredding. The first lick is this crazy kind of hybrid picked open string thing. And, when I first saw this live footage, when I heard that lick, I thought, okay, there's lick number 1. And then I sat there and I tried to learn it. And I'd never, heard the solo. I've never played the solo before. And I sat there and I spent about an hour working with this lick. And I listened to it and I slowed it down. I started to experiment. And I had trouble, and that happens, when you're transcribing something, you're trying to learn, how to play something, especially when it's unorthodox and unusual like this lick. And I'm pretty sure I'm close to what he was playing. It's still missing something. There's something in there that he was doing, and I just haven't been able to find it yet. But the raw idea is here. So one thing I wanted to say whenever you're working on somebody else's music, maybe you're working on a solo or some licks or something, even if you're not able to play exactly, what was recorded or performed, there's something valuable you can learn from sitting there and just going through something over and over and over, and making variations and making little mutations to it. So even though I spent about an hour with this lick, I made probably a dozen variations of it, in different ways of playing it, different string groups. And, after a while, I just sat there and started playing around with the basic idea, and I came up with a bunch of cool stuff. So even if I'm not playing the exact Vinnie Moore lick, to me it was well worth, the time and the energy that I spent working on it, because I came up with so many cool variations that, It's pretty cool, but it looks like this. And you can see it's pretty wild because in the beginning he's doing this kind of string skipped hybrid picking. Something like that, and it's kind of pulling off to the open high E. And then he starts doing basically a group of 4 notes, but it's played with legato, and the 4th note is the open B string. Like that. And he kind of just ends it way up there out of like the A minor pentatonic box, but you know, a very high position, you know, around the 17th position there. So one more time, kind of slow. Next up, we've got this kind of blurry A blues scale run, and he's also doing a little bit of hybrid picking. I think it's mainly just on the high E string right there, but it looks and sounds like this. And you can see right there, we're starting with a little piece of A minor pentatonic right there. And then he reaches all the way up and grabs that D note on the 22nd fret, and then descends technically A blues. And he's kind of grabbing that E flat right there. And then you do all that again. Then you do the first part again. And then you're going to double this D, A to G. Like that. You know, really interesting lick, and it's blurry, especially when he starts playing it faster. The next lick from this solo is the sequence kind of melodic phrase that blurs between arpeggios and scales, and everything in the solo kind of shifted to E major temporarily. And this is a really interesting phrase, but it looks and sounds like this. And there you can see we've definitely moved to E major. Something like that. And you can see the E major arpeggio is kind of right there. But it's starting a little lower. It's kind of starting and targeting, you know, the flat 7. So it's definitely kind of E7, I guess, instead of E major. Really like it. Here's a bonus lick from the solo, and this is this really cool kind of G major or E minor pedal point lick, and I love pedal point ideas. So it has this busy, you know, kind of classical sound, and definitely earlier, you know, in Vinnie's career, he played a lot more of these kind of classically tinged or influenced ideas. And then over the years, he kind of drifted more toward a traditional rock and kind of blues rock sound. But it's kind of a treat whenever you hear him kind of add some of these little classical ideas. And all the licks in this lesson, you know, from the solo, I kind of added little endings, you know, like a bend or a phrase or something to kind of give it a stopping point. So keep in mind, when Vinnie played this solo, he was launching this stuff like a cannon, you know, he just kept going and going like the Energizer Bunny. So just keep that in mind. You know, he was just blazing around the fretboard. And here I've been kind of breaking these ideas up into little pieces. So this lick's no exception because I added like a little ending for this. But it looks and sounds like this. it's basically, you know, kind of G major or, you know, E minor, depends on where you want to put it. And there's this kind of pivot happening. And that pivot is right there between that G and F sharp on the 7th and 8th fret on the B string. And then there's this alternating note sequence happening. You know, this B note to the E, and then they're adding that D up there. So you can relate that, like I said, either to G or E major, or E minor rather. G major or E minor. One more time there, slowly. And then once you have that pattern together, and it's comfortable, then he starts walking down the scale. You can think, you know, G major or E minor. Or, depending on where you want to end it. But that would look like this. And there's some string skipping, you know, happening right there. But really interesting lick, and it's challenging. You know, definitely something you have to sit there and you have to think, you know, while you're playing that. That's going to wrap this look at 3 Vinnie Moore licks from 1991, and definitely I'm a Vinnie Moore fan. I love all those old, you know, Shrapnel, kind of the original pack of, you know, shred guitarists that came out of Shrapnel Records. I'm a fan of all those players, you know, McAlpine and Gilbert and Vinnie Moore and Michael Lee Firkins and Greg Howe and all those guys. But anyway, you know, some great ideas definitely from Vinnie here. And it's really inspiring when you find footage like this where it's like, I've never seen this, you know, let me sit here and see what I can, you know, kind of pick out and steal or borrow. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.